Rush Limbaugh made quite an admission this week that I wanted to share with you. But naturally what he did is he took his admission and he wrapped it up in about 6 layers of rationalizations.
I'm sure some of you have already thought of this, but it just hit me a few days ago. For some reason, I was thinking about the war in Iraq. You remember what the intelligence agencies were telling us in the war in Iraq? You remember what they were telling us? There was detail. There were photos. There was conclusive evidence that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. And it wasn't just U.S. intel. It was MI5, MI6. It was intelligence agencies all over the world. George W. Bush kept quoting them. George W. Bush kept citing them. George W. Bush sent Colin Powell to the UN with the so-called evidence. And Colin Powell had to present it to the Security Council. There were photos and all of these bits of proof that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. Colin Powell now says that's the most embarrassing period in his life because it turns out none of it was true. What if the intel on the war in Iraq was another disinformation campaign to damage another Republican president? And boy, did that work. Ever since there were no weapons, look at what we did. Bush spent 2.5 years traveling the country building support for the war in Iraq. We had the massive opening day of shock and awe. And we had the pictures of Saddam's statue coming down, Saddam eventually being captured, hiding out in a hole in the ground somewhere. The quote-unquote intelligence community, this represented on purpose the degree to which Hussein had WMDs, because I'll tell you, it was a very, very embarrassing moment for the Bush administration. I mean, 2 years of ontological certitude. This guy posed a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda. This guy, they even showed us photos where Al-Qaeda may have trained outside Baghdad. Now, we know the Republicans are not the favored party in Washington amongst swamp dwellers, even though many of the CIA apparatus were, of course, aligned with Bush. But I was just thinking about this the other day, and that was a glaring example where, if it was legitimate, look how wrong they were. I mean, they couldn't have been more wrong, and it was not just one intelligence agency. It was the entire intel community in this country and in the UK and all of our allies. There was supposedly unanimous agreement on Saddam having weapons of mass destruction. Now, what if, this is hindsight, which is always 20/20, what if, based on what we know now, we know how the deep state has been trying to undermine Donald Trump from the days he was a candidate to during his transition to even its ongoing now as president? What if Saddam weapons of mass destruction was also a false narrative designed to, did it ultimately embarrass Bush? Did it weaken the U.S. military? Did it, whatever it did, I mean, it opened the doors for the Democrats to literally destroy his presidency in the second term.
There it is. It took him 15 years, but he finally admitted it. He admitted the war in Iraq was bullshit. For those of you who are keeping track of this, Bill O'Reilly flipped on the war. I think it was in like 2013-ish. Bill O'Reilly flipped on it. Glenn Beck flipped on it at about the same time. These guys were the leading war propagandists, by the way. The one who I'm not sure on if he flipped, I think the only one left is Hannity, but Hannity supported Trump over all the other Republicans, And Trump was vocal against the Iraq war when he was running, so I don't know. Is there some inference there we can make? But Hannity was one of the biggest cheerleaders for the war in Iraq, so I don't know. He's such a hack, he doesn't even... But, I mean, it took Limbaugh 15 years to finally admit it. 15 years to admit the war was wrong. These are people who, Bill O'Reilly, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, every day they would go out on their show and call Democrats traitors for being against the war in Iraq. They would call them stupid. They would call them traitors. They would say, what do you not understand? This is obvious that these guys, he attacked us and he wants to keep attacking us. We gotta do it. It's the patriotic thing to do. He covered up for torture. He defended torture. He defended getting rid of due process. NSA spy. He defended all of that. He's in favor of all of that. Finally, he admits he was wrong. Now that, again, for those of you keeping track of this, now the only people who are real defenders of the war, Bill Kristol, I think David Frum, and then you have Cheney, all the neocons who were there. Bush hasn't spoken on it, but I imagine he still defends it. So it's just the people in the administration and maybe 12% of the U.S. population. So pretty much everybody's admitted now. It was a terrible idea. It was an illegal war, by the way. Illegal. We waged an offensive war against a country that didn't attack us based on lies. It's a war crime. Any other country did that, we'd be calling for them to be brought up on trial at The Hague. But it's us, so we're above the law, of course. So what's funny is his conspiracy angle to it, because he says, oh, it was all the deep state trying to dupe Bush. No, we actually know what happened. We have the historical record from what happened. So was the deep state part of it? Yes, of course. They were pushing for war endlessly. But so was Dick Cheney, so was Donald Rumsfeld, so was Bill Kristol, so was Paul Wolfowitz. So it wasn't just the deep state, it was the state. It was all the neocons in the administration, and it was the deep state as well. Everybody wanted all the neocons infested government and just fucking decided war no matter what. So, and you can go back and read Project for a New American Century, exactly what they said. They listed the countries. These are the countries who want to invade and topple and put pro-Western regimes in there because and then this gets to the main point. It wasn't to, quote, damage a Republican president, as idiot boy Rush Limbaugh says here. No, it's for U.S. domination, you jackass. It's for, we are the world's sole superpower, and it's going to fucking stay that way. And we're going to keep jacking natural resources from countries that are supposed to be free and independent. We're going to keep propping up dictators. 73% of the world's dictators are supported by the United States of America. This is about business. This is about the status quo. This is about we need the minerals from Afghanistan. We need the oil from Iraq. We need to make sure we have the region locked down because we're not changing the balance of power. The United States is going to have a lockdown on power and control in this world. And that's one of the main reasons why we did what we did and why we're still warmongering like nobody's business. We're bombing 8 different countries. Whereas full-scale wars now in 3 countries, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now Syria, which we said we're staying in indefinitely this week. They said that. Tillerson said that. So, no, it's not. In his mind, since he's an idiot and he's a partisan asshole, he's always like, oh, it's always they're coming to get the Republicans. No, the Republicans carried out that atrocity. They did. That's what they did with the deep state, working hand in hand when they mucked up all that bullshit intelligence. And it wasn't to get a Republican president. It was they were all fighting for neoconservative principles, and they were all fighting for U.S. imperialism. And final point I want to make here is he said in the middle of that, Republicans are not the favored party among swamp dwellers. How fucking naive are you? How naive are you? This guy, man, from the 1990s and on, his whole shtick has been, Republicans are right about everything and Democrats are wrong about everything. Oh, how fucking entertaining and deep that is, Rush. That's so stupid. That's so stupid. And don't accuse like, oh, well, you just do the opposite. Democrats are right about everything. I co-founded a group that primaries Democrats. No, the corporate Democratic Party sucks. The establishment Republican Party sucks. They all suck. In this country, we have the Republican Party and the Republican Light Party. So one party is for the military-industrial complex and for Wall Street. The other party is for the military-industrial complex and for Wall Street, and they just happen to not hate minorities. And every now and then they throw you a bone on an economic issue or two. That's it. So the establishment of both parties is the problem, you fucking dense fool. You dimwit, you imbecile. His whole shtick, he can never back away from it. Republicans are right about everything. Democrats are wrong. Why is nobody watching my show? Gee, I wonder why, Rush.